Morning. Welcome to the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority Audit Committee. Today is Wednesday, October 15th, 2025. This meeting is being recorded. Commissioner Slazo?
Here.
Commissioner Bass? Commissioner Saunders?
Here.
We have quorum.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate you, Commissioner Saunders, being here today, sticking around for yet another committee meeting. I also just want to say that this week it rained, which rain makes it especially miserable for our unhoused neighbors who are on the streets. It's already miserable to be there, but on a unexpected rain like it had this week, it makes it more miserable, and it's something that's been on my mind. So anyhow, wanted to mention that at the top of this meeting. I also want to apologize for the first 15 minutes of the meeting that we had previously that wasn't properly recorded, which missed a discussion of our charters. So people haven't been able to review that. I'm not sure if that's going to be able to be reinstated, but I do want to apologize for people listening to this meeting because of that issue. But let's move through item number one, acceptance of the minutes, including corrections from the audit committee from September 4th, 2025. Can I get not a voting? Okay.
Unless there's changes.
Any changes?
No. Oh.
Okay, so then we're going to accept those minutes and then move on to item number two, which is review and approval of the audit committee charter. And I'm going to ask Aram Shanawaz. Sorry, I'm trying to Shanawaz. I'm going to do better and I'll get there, but appreciate that. And I'm very happy to have you here today to present as the kind of the acting leader of our internal audit function here at LAHSA. So welcome to your first commission meeting and appreciate you being here. And if you could discuss a little bit the audit committee charter, which we actually voted to approve at our last meeting, but we had issues with that according to our legal counsel. So there's been some changes that have been made. And it's unfortunate because it's delayed the implementation of kind of getting going with this committee. To have a committee without a charter isn't optimal. But I'm glad to have it back on the agenda today with some adjustments that we can then approve.
Yes, thank you for the kind introduction. I really appreciate it. We have the audit committee charter, which was further reviewed by our legal counsel, and they approved the changes that we suggested. And they also advised a couple of changes that were added to the audit committee charter.
Right. So those changes, so there's some changes that came in actually after the charter that was posted. So I want to discuss what those are now and then read those in and see if we can read those into what is stated in that charter so that we can approve it today rather than have to go back and forth again. These changes were approved by council. Is that correct?
Council, yes, that's correct.
Great. And those changes somehow just didn't make it into the document that we were presented with today. So
that's right.
Okay, so then I'm going to read out, just to be crystal clear, I'm going to read out the changes that are made into that document. And you've sent those changes to me that have been approved by council.
That's right.
And you've also sent them to LAHSA staff as well. Yeah. So I'm reading off of these documents that have been approved by council and that have been accepted, but don't exactly match to what we have in our packet right now. So there's additional language right after the audit committee charter title on the document that lists when the committee charter was adopted, which I think is really helpful. So it says adopted by the LAHSA audit committee on the date that it's adopted, which would be today if we vote to adopt it. And then there's a second line there. It says adopted by the LAHSA commission on with a date that would be filled in. So that way, when we look at this charter, we can see exactly when it was adopted and what dates. So I think that's a helpful addition to that. There's also language that has been reinstated in the first bullet point, and I'm going to read that clearly of what it should be. So the first bullet point would read, the purpose of the audit committee charter is to oversee LAHSA's internal audit process, annual single audit, and internal controls over financial reporting processes in accordance with standards set by the Institute of Internal Auditors. And internal audit is actually written in this document, which was approved by council. So there's that. And then there's also on the second bullet, I'm going to just read that in its entirety also. The audit committee ensures that the internal audit function effectively supports LAHSA's efforts to identify and mitigate risks by providing independent and objective assurance and another layer of oversight on the adequacy of governance, risk management, and internal controls. So that's accurate. Did I read that accurately, Aram? I did. Okay, thanks. And then there's another section that was added at the very, very end of the powers of the audit committee. So it's a final bullet point, which is a little different. That says, the final bullet point says, as in terms of the powers of the audit committee, we say we're periodically evaluating the audit committee's own performance and approving selection of the chief audit executive. So that's the other language that was into. Did I miss anything?
No, you didn't.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate it. So that's now been, that's the audit committee charter that we'd like to bring for a vote right now to approve, which has been approved by council and has now been stated into the record and circulated to staff. So can I get a motion?
I
to approve?
move to approve. Oh, well, I do have a question. So the updated or the final draft will then be added to our minutes, or where will the public be able to find the final document?
It's a great question. Let's see. Hang on.
Good morning, Eileen Bryson, Manager of Executive Support. We will add it to the package that's posted online.
Okay, thank you so much.
Place it.
Now I move to approve.
Okay, so then I second, I guess, and thank you.
Commissioner Slaza,
Aye.
Commissioner Saunders,
Aye.
the motion passes unanimously.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Aram.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you back in a moment. I want to move on to item number 3 on our agenda item today, which is the presentation of our internal audit best practices. Now, this is a little different from something that we've done at the commission before, but we have basically a guest speaker today, Max Geyer, who's a partner at Grant Thornton. And thank you, Max, for coming in today to help give an overview of what internal audit best practices would look like. I really appreciate your time and thank you for coming in to share that with you as we on our commission and inside of LAHSA get better educated on what the internal audit function might be able to do for us and help us become more effective in terms of our mission. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, commissioners, and appreciate the time and the opportunity to speak today. My name is Max Geyer. I'm a partner at Grant Thornton Advisors, LLC, which is a large global public accounting and advisory firm. Our Los Angeles office is right here up the street. And I've been in the practice of internal audit and a CPA holder for nearly 15 to 20 years now. My area of practice focuses on performing internal audit services as a service to organizations, both public, private, nonprofit, up and down the industry spectrum. And I'm here today not only in my professional capacity as a leader of internal audit, but also as a citizen of Los Angeles. I live in CD1 and I'm relatively active in the community and happy to support the mission and objectives of LAHSA.
Thanks. Hey, do we have the slides that we can present? Oh, thank you. Great.
Great.
Thanks.
So for today's agenda, I've prepared a brief presentation and please interrupt me if there are questions. I'm glad to stop and tailor this to the organization's needs. Wanted to give a brief overview of what is internal audit, how it's structured organizationally in typical fashion, the typical life cycle of an internal audit project and what that looks like, as well as strategies for getting the most out of the internal audit function. We've included some areas for review that are typical among internal audit plans, as well as a brief overview of the maturity curve and what maximizing opportunities for success in internal audit looks like. So we can jump to the next slide. So definitionally, according to the Institute of Internal Auditors, which is the professional organization that oversees the practice, internal auditing is an independent, objective assurance and consulting activity designed to add value and improve organizational operations. I think it's really important that we focus on the add value part. This is not a function whose job is to necessarily have a gotcha style audit, but we're here to help organizations identify their key strategic objectives and in support of those objectives, perform auditing procedures that in furtherance of the organization's goals. Internal audit is objective and independent from management, meaning the audit function doesn't perform management activities. We don't necessarily make decisions for the organization. We don't implement controls or processes or activities. And that's important because if we were to do that, we would no longer be independent and objective. And the goal of internal audit is really to have an independent and objective function that evaluates the quality of management's activities in furtherance of the organizational goals. It's a professional competency, much like accountancy or the legal profession or technology or human resources. It's a profession like any other. Our internal audit practitioners typically hold one or more professional certifications. Myself, I'm a CPA. There are other certifications that are relevant. And so there's a skill to this, and there's a practice of internal audit, much like you'd experience in law or accounting. Some key benefits, I think most importantly, right, internal audit, when it performs its duties and produces reports and results for the board and or senior management, the outcome of those reports and the actions that management take serve to further support the credibility of the organization. We typically help organizations achieve their objectives by performing audits and engagements, identifying opportunities for improvement, and providing recommendations to management to help implement those. So lots of benefits that can be had from maintaining an internal audit function. One of the companies that I work with often refers to their function as the searchlight. So it's sort of like you could think of internal audit as a flashlight that we shine on various areas of the organization at the direction of the audit committee and of senior management.
It's just one question on that first slide. We are one of the kind of our North Star is the IIA standards. So does that seem like a reasonable thing to you for us to aspire to conform with the IIA standards with our audit function best practice?
Yeah, that's right. So the Institute of Internal Auditors, or the IIA, is the standard setting body for the profession of internal audit. They outline a professional practices framework and a body of standards that dictate how an internal audit function should operate. Some of those standards are required. Others of those are suggested, and they're very clear in the guidance about which is required and not, typically around independence, objectivity, and the communications that are required from internal audit function to the board are outlined very clearly. And other standards are related to the implementation guidance that are more suggestive and informative in nature and can be tailored to fit the particular needs of an organization.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. So moving on to the next slide. This is an illustrative organization chart. This is not meant to be prescriptive in any way. Typically, you have a governance function, which is your board of directors, in this case, board of commissioners, that oversees the organization. And they oversee the executive panel, the chief executive officer, as well as all of the other chief officers of the organization and the functions that they report to. Internal audit typically sits among the executive committee and is a key department alongside accounting, operations, programs, IT, as is illustrated here. Internal audit notably has a functional reporting to the audit committee. And in this case, that means the audit committee would direct the activities of the internal audit function. What areas should be evaluated? How should they be evaluated? What's the appropriate scope, size, and function of the internal audit department? The internal audit department also has a administrative reporting authority to the chief executive officer. And this is typically for areas of budgeting, planning, staffing, administrative items in nature. But the activities of internal audit, what should we be looking at? To what depth should we be evaluating those things? The empowerment of internal audit through its charter to have access to books and records of the organization comes directly from the audit committee. Okay. So we can jump on to the next slide. This is a representation of a typical internal audit life cycle. So normally what you'd experience is that you'd establish an internal audit function. That function would then conduct a risk assessment, which is a quantitative and qualitative evaluation of the risks facing the organization. And out of that risk assessment, an internal audit plan would be determined, typically for the period of 1, 2, or 3 years. They would outline, these are the areas that we're going to audit and in what order and in what depth. That's a risk-driven decision. So based on the risks of the organization, and it'll be unique to each organization. Once that's determined, each individual audit would follow a series of steps like this. There'd be a planning step where you'd determine and finalize the details of the scope. What time period are we auditing? What areas of a function are we auditing? Who is subject to review? During fieldwork, we would perform our auditing procedures. This would include gathering documents, conducting interviews, sending out surveys, a variety of computer-assisted auditing techniques such as data analytics. Anything really can be deployed as needed to in furtherance of the audit objectives. And then we would collect our findings based on either the criteria that's been established by the company or best practices. Internal auditors would determine what findings exist based on the facts on the ground. It's very objective. It's very fact-based. It's very rigorous. There is a good degree of judgment also involved, but that is in conformance with the IAA standards. And then we would prepare an internal audit report that summarizes those findings. And this is typically done in conjunction with the auditee. So the department or function that we're auditing would be involved along the way. They'd be familiar with the findings. They'd have an opportunity to weigh in if something was incorrect. They'd have an opportunity to adjust that. An internal audit would work with that department to reach a fact-based conclusion there, and then produce a report with those findings along with suggested recommendations. And so you'd typically run any number of internal audits during the year. There are organizations that run 3 to 5. There are organizations up to 10 or 15 annual audits, and I've heard of organizations that do 200. So it just depends on the size, scope, the depth of auditing that would be appropriate for your organization. So this is the life cycle. Okay. Jump to the next slide. So getting the most out of an internal audit function, I think just important to call out here, there are a lot of features and characteristics that would need to be in place to get the most out of this. Most importantly being strong executive support from the audit committee and from senior management. But typically what we see is the audit committee gets together with senior management to determine the structure and design of the internal audit function. They work together to select and appoint the appropriate members of that function, whether that's through hiring or through onboarding a vendor or whatever that looks like, and then evaluating the quality of that function periodically. Without that executive support, internal audit can sort of fall into an administrative category, and it doesn't really provide the value that is really sought after. And so with that executive support, sponsorship, and the right level of authority, internal audit can provide a great deal of value back to the organization, many times over the cost of the function typically. All right, we can jump to the next slide. These are some areas that an internal audit program would likely explore. I'm not going to read all these into the record. I think the materials are out there. It's essentially every area of an organization. And there's some up here that may be directly applicable to LASA. Others may be more kind of general in nature. But essentially it's accounting, finance, IT, human resources, operations, programs, you name it. Any area that would have a compliance function or be subject to a law or regulation, internal audit could participate and perform an audit over that area and produce a report that would dictate, or not dictate, but rather indicate what areas of that regulation are being met versus areas of improvement. So it's a pretty wide-reaching function. And importantly, the internal audit function is established with a charter that provides and provisions the necessary authorities to access books, records, individuals, et cetera, in order to perform those duties. So you can really point this anywhere that is most helpful, right? And so the determination of the audit plan is really risk-based and done in coordination with senior management and the audit committee. Jump to the next slide. And last, I'll just leave you with what we have as our internal audit maturity curve. This is a maturity curve that we've developed at Grant Thornton, which helps us understand where an internal audit function might be on a scale of maturity. And so we start with the initial phase where the internal audit function is really focused on basic compliance activities in a developed, defined, advanced, optimized all the way up the curve where internal audit really becomes a true business partner and a collaborative member of strategy setting in the organization. The further you move up the curve, the more value you typically get from internal audit. There's also a cost to moving up that curve that requires more staffing and investment. And so it would really be up to the audit committee and senior management to determine, where would we like to see this function exist? Perhaps the advanced or defined stage is appropriate for your organization, and that achieves the objectives and is the best fit of cost and investment and value. So just having an awareness of these different stages and being able to say, hey, we're here today, but we'd like to move to here in 2 years and build a plan to get there is something that would be a healthy exercise. So glad to take any questions. I raced through that pretty quickly, and there's a lot more to cover here, but this is just meant to be a brief overview.
I really appreciate that. I appreciate the layman's terms and the briefness of it, and the straightforward approach to your presentation. I'll definitely look into this in more details, but I think that was a great overview.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you coming and explaining this and laying this out. I think it's helpful for this committee. I think it's helpful for our commission. I think it's helpful for LASA in general, and also for folks from the outside that understand that this is something that we're going to be doing. It's going to be a priority. And would like to underline, you said that what's key in this is collaboration between the commission, the board, and from the private sector terms, the board, but in our case, the commission, and executive management. And I think that what's significant is in a recent statement in the press, our new interim CEO made clear that the internal audit process is a priority for her to make sure the organization, I'm reading verbatim, remains transparent and accountable and works towards addressing its mission. And I think that we have in our interim CEO a great partner for our internal audit function. And I think we're really looking forward to working towards that. And it sounds like that at the heart of it is key. And then we can then use this function to, as you said, which I really like that language, shine a light on different portions of the work that we do, not as a gotcha, but as to spot opportunities for improvement so we can do a better job on our mission.
Yeah, that's right. Many of our internal audit reports start with all the great things that the organization is doing that are leading practices, and it'd be fantastic to highlight those, I imagine, for you all as well. So
And then just a question on this in terms of the so we as just if you can explain kind of from your professional experience. So let's say we do an audit and we look at something. Let's like we look at, I don't know, the way that insurance is deployed across our the properties that we take care of, and then there's a number of areas that are spotted that need improvement. How does that actually work in terms of getting those, like in practical terms? Like how does that feedback work? Does it first thing go public on and or does it go to the department to help correct? How does it work? Because obviously you're spotting areas for improvement, and we want those things to be improved. So how does that usually work out?
yeah, so during an internal audit, let's say we conclude an internal audit and we have a report that includes some findings. Those findings are typically paired with recommendations that are best practices as to how management might address those findings. That report is shared with the auditee, the departmental function, typically also senior management and the board. In a setting like this, the board may choose to make those reports public if they so felt that was appropriate or that's part of the charter. That could be known as well. And then it would be up to management to then take the necessary action to address those findings. And usually internal audit rides alongside that process in making sure that the steps management's taking will in fact address the issue and provide consultative support along the way. So this isn't just we give out findings and walk away and hope that they're fixed. We really like to be a partner with management along the way while maintaining our independence and objectivity to help ensure that those findings and recommendations are deployed. Ultimately, though, that is up to management under the supervision of senior management and the greater board.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you for that explanation. It's a team approach. So
Absolutely.
but I mean, it's clear we're not just going to be producing PowerPoint decks. We're going to produce ideas for improvements that then we can work collaboratively with our stakeholders to actually make sure that get done.
That's right.
Any other questions, Commissioner Saunders? All right. Is there public comment available on this or no? Okay. So I would just want to say thank you so much again for taking some time out of your busy schedule and presenting here today to help shine a light on the internal audit function and best practices for us. It's really helpful. Thank you, Max.
Very good. Thank you for the time.
Thanks. All right. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to item number 4 and invite Janine Lim. Thank you. This is an overview of the A133 single audit process.
Thank you, Janine Lim, Deputy CFO. So I'm just going to be outlining for you what our process was to select our single audit vendor. So I'm just going to run through the steps. So the procurement followed OMB uniform guidance. It was a competitive RFQ based on experience, independence, and cost. That RFQ was published January 2023 with a submission deadline of March 13th, 2023. The RFQ solicited statements of qualification from individual or firms to perform financial audits for fiscal years ending 2023, 2024, and 2025. Clifton Larson Allen, or CLA, was selected because they were the only qualified firm that submitted a response to the RFQ, and their proposal met all compliance and technical requirements under OMB guidance. CLA has successfully completed the financial audits for the fiscal years ending June 30th, 2023 and June 30th, 2024, and is currently contracted to perform the audit for fiscal year ending June 30, 2025. LASA will be reprocuring the audit services in January 2026. I'll go over the audit work plan. The scope of the work plan was one audit of financial statements in accordance with GAAP and government auditing standards, assessment of internal controls over financial reporting and compliance with applicable laws, regulation, contracts, and grant requirements, compliance testing for major federal programs under the uniform guidance, assessment of internal controls over compliance for major federal programs. The key components of the work plan were risk assessment and internal control review, compliance testing, sampling, and substantive testing. And the deliverables were independent auditor's report on financial statements and federal award compliance, the SEFA, or schedule of expenditures of federal awards, schedule of findings and question costs, and corrective action plan.
Thank you. Appreciate you for submitting this item, because one thing that's definitely in our wheelhouse for this committee is to help oversee the single audit process. So do you have any questions, Commissioner Saunders? Okay. I have a couple questions. One is, and I really appreciate you being here, Janine, to explain this. I know the finance department's under a lot of pressure these days with contracts and other things, so thank you for taking time out to be here. Could you explain why there was only one firm that was qualified that responded to the RFQ request?
Sure. So some of these factors are outside of our control. One is that there are cost constraints and also market incentives. Government entities like LASA operate within strict budgetary constraints tied to the use of public funds. Audit costs must then be reasonable and necessary as required by uniform guidance. In contrast, publicly traded companies, like in the private sector, routinely pay millions of dollars for their annual audits, and the average audit fee for public companies exceeds $2.2 million. So given this disparity, it's more lucrative for firms to engage in the public sector as it is to engage in government-funded entities like ours. So that's one reason.
Okay, I mean, I get it, but it's just to me, to have a competitive process with only one qualified applicant.
Sure.
Doesn't seem like a competitive process. And I mean, there's still somebody wanted to do it. And I get that the publicly traded companies or private companies that require these services have maybe more budget than we do, but we still have enough to attract at least one.
Sure.
People want to do this.
Sure.
And I don't know if, I think cost is probably one of the elements, but it's just like, it just seems strange to me that we only have one to apply. We're a huge organization. We're a high profile organization. I'm just trying to understand, but I know this has also predated you because you weren't here for this. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's other factors too. We are a joint powers authority, which is also a very particular type of organization. So we have a particular set of audit standards under the Joint Powers Authority. We also have HUD-funded programs as well, which require very specific auditing standards. So all that put together, plus with the constraints of the market,
Nobody really wanted to apply.
yes.
Okay. And who, for this bidding process, and I gave you these questions in advance, so I wanted
And I appreciate that.
I know, because I didn't want to ambush you because I know that you guys have. So, who ran the process for the bidding, and was the audit committee involved in that?
That was the contracts and procurement department. I'm not sure how involved the audit committee was in that process.
Okay, so the audit committee may not have been involved in that process.
I'm not sure. I
You're
can
not
find
sure.
out.
Oh, you can find out. Okay, I appreciate if you can find out. I can go back through the minutes and see whether or not this was brought to the audit committee's attention, which would have been, I guess, in March. Well, it would have been before that. So I'm looking at the timeline.
CLA itself was brought to program and finance.
Okay, right. But I mean, not
Right.
asking about CLA, I'm asking about the process and saying, was this something that was involved? Because certainly for the reprocurement coming up in 2026,
Mhm.
we'd like to be involved in that process.
Absolutely.
And because I think it's important to get that out there. And then the last question, which again, I'm trying to give you stuff in advance so you can prepare. The total fees that we paid each year to Clifton Larson, which are publicly available anyway. I was wondering if you could just summarize that.
Sure. FY 22 to 23, the audit performed for 23-24. The contract amount was 85,000. The total cost that we ended up paying was 68,775. For the audit performed for fiscal year 24-25, the total contract there was 117,182, and the total cost we paid was 88,413. For the audit to be performed for FY 25-26, we will also have the same amount on the contract, which will be 117,182.
Okay, this seems incredibly affordable to me. I mean, for an $850 million, an organization with $850 million budget, we're paying, less than 100, we're paying 120K or something like that for our single audit.
Correct.
All right. Thank you. I really appreciate your presentation today. And do you have any other questions? Yeah, I did have a list. I know. I'm prepared. All right. Thank you, Janine. I really appreciate you being here. And thanks. And I'm looking forward to working with, I guess, not finance, but procurement department as we look for our 2026 process, right?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on. Item number 5, discussion of internal audit priorities. Aram, you're back up. Yeah.
Right. Good morning, members of Audit Committee and all the guests joining us today for the thank you for the opportunity to present today. This meeting is being conducted in accordance with the Brown Act, and I appreciate the committee's continued commitment to transparency and public accountability. The purpose of today's presentation is to provide clear visibility into the internal audit function, its current priorities, progress, and alignment with LASA's mission and strategic direction. Our work is focused on strengthening internal controls, enhancing operational integrity, and ensuring responsible stewardship of public funds. Everything we do is guided by a commitment to ethical governance, transparency, and public trust. Internal audit is being built intentionally as a strategic partner to this committee, an independent function that provides objective assurance while helping the organization operate efficiently, ethically, and responsibly. Our role extends beyond identifying issues. We are here to provide risk insight, support strong decision-making, and drive meaningful improvement across programs and operations. Today, I will walk through our current audit engagements, areas of elevated risk, and key next steps, and as we continue to mature and stabilize the internal audit function here at LASA. I welcome the committee's feedback, questions, and guidance as we move forward. Yes, so we're here today to align on internal audit priorities for fiscal year 25-26 and ensure our work is focused on areas of highest risk and impact the organization. Internal audit now reports separately from risk management, strengthening independence and reinforcing direct accountability to this committee. This structure enhances the transparency, allows the internal audit to provide objective assurance, and supports sound governance. By the end of this discussion, we will confirm audit priorities, timing, and any support needed from this committee. Strong governance and independence are foundation of internal audit function, and our structure now reflects that. Internal audit reports functionally to this audit committee and administratively to executive leadership, which aligns with IIA standards and best practices. An updated internal audit charter has been drafted to clearly define our mandate, scope, and authority, and it is currently with General Counsel for review before coming to this audit committee for approval.
Yeah, can I just pause on that for one moment? Because we actually did have that internal audit charter that came to our meeting, our previous meeting that we approved, but then was not brought to full commission because there were issues. Apparently, council had issues with that. And that was noted a couple of weeks ago when we had our full commission meeting at the end of September.
That's correct.
And I was hoping that internal audit charter, because it was flagged for issues, would be presented at this meeting today. But it hasn't, because it's been sitting with our council. And we're not going to be able to obviously approve that today because we don't have a version of it. In fact, there actually is a version of it that has been approved by the full commission that has the internal audit department reporting to the management committee. So that's out of alignment and it's not the way it should be. So I'd just like you to bring back to our council that we would have liked to have had that, that internal audit charter ready for our meeting that we had at this committee last month, that it really wasn't ready for, even though we approved it. And now we'd like to have that red line version and understand what's being changed and try to get that approved as quickly as possible, because without that internal audit charter, we can't do any work on internal audit. So that's right now in council's office, and I'm hoping that that will be expedited because I know that this function is a priority for management and specifically called out by our interim CEO. So just wanted to pause on that. So thanks.
Yes, I'm in continuous communication with our general counsel, and we should have that internal audit charter by the end of next week.
Thank you.
In alignment with professional standards, the annual independence affirmation has been prepared and will be issued to this committee to formally document internal audit's independence. A CAE transition process is underway to ensure continued leadership stability and full compliance with governance expectation for the function. This is a high-level view of LASA's current risk environment based on internal reviews, prior audit work, and emerging operational trends. Grant compliance remains a significant area of risk due to federal and local funding requirements under COC, Measure A, and 2 CFR 200, especially around subrecipient monitoring. IT and cybersecurity continue to be priority risks with growing exposure in access management, incident response readiness, and endpoint and email security. Data quality in HMIS is critical. Reporting integrity and decision-making rely on accurate and complete data. Procurement and vendor management risks remain particularly in contract execution, signatory authority, and AP controls. Financial control risks persist in areas like IPE, which is information provided by entity, reconciliations, duplicate payments, and segregation of duties, along with ongoing fraud, waste, and abuse prevention through hotline monitoring. The internal audit strategy is built around 3 pillars designed to deliver value while protecting organizational integrity. First is assurance. We will execute risk-based audit focused on the highest areas of exposure. Second is advisory. We will provide guidance on process improvement and in control design through readiness review and targeted assessments. Importantly, internal audit does not assume ownership of the controls. Responsibility always remains with management. Third is infrastructure. To remain effective long-term, we are strengthening the foundation of function through a quality assurance and improvement program, that is QAIP, updated audit methodology, analytics, reporting schedules, and talent development. These pillars allow internal audit to balance assurance with strategic insight while building a function that is sustainable and aligned with IIA standards. These priority audits were selected based on risk exposure, funding compliance requirements, and operational impact. The signatory authority review will ensure clarity and control over approvals to prevent unauthorized commitments and strengthen accountability. The IT cybersecurity and incident response review will assess governance, multi-factor authentication enforcement, logging practices, and incident response readiness to reduce cyber risk exposure. The COC under spend follow-up will evaluate root causes and verify whether corrective actions are being implemented and sustained. The procurement and account payable review will focus on vendor onboarding, contract compliance, three-way match controls, and duplicate payments prevention. HMIS data quality review will evaluate data completeness, access security, and change controls to ensure reliable program reporting. Internal audit operates under a standards-driven approach to ensure credibility, transparency, assurance, reliability for this committee. Our work is aligned to the IIA 2024 Global Internal Audit Standards and the COSO Internal Control Framework, which guide governance, effectiveness, and risk accountability. For IT and cybersecurity audit coverage, we are applying the NIST cybersecurity framework and relevant COVID governance principles to ensure control maturity and resilience. We're refreshing our audit methodology to strengthen audit execution discipline. This includes enhanced risk assessment, risk and control matrices, sampling, consistency, IPE data reliability testing. A quality assurance and improvement program will be established to formalize audit quality monitoring and prepare for a future external quality assessment in alignment with IIA requirements. Internal audit is planning to embed data analytics into our audit approach to strengthen risk monitoring and expand coverage beyond traditional sample-based testing. Our goal is to build continuous insight capabilities by using data to identify payment anomalies, vendor trends, and access risk and exception activity earlier. As part of this effort, we will begin with pilot continuous auditing tests in high-risk financial areas. These analytics initiatives will evolve over time into a structured program that enhances early detection, support fraud prevention, and provides this committee with stronger visibility into control effectiveness. Over the next 90 days, we will finalize the internal audit charter, launch the risk-based audit plan, and begin issuing initial audit reports with management action plans. We are requesting the committee's support in 3 areas: approval of the charter and quarterly reporting schedule, endorsement of priority audits, given current resource limitations, reinforcement of timely access to data and management participation. With that, internal audit remains committed to providing this committee with an independent, risk-focused assurance that support transparency, accountability, and responsible stewardship of public funds. As we continue to build the function, our priority is to deliver work that not only identifies risk, but also strengthens processes, controls, drives operational improvement, and support LASA's mission. Internal audit is moving forward with discipline, purpose, and a clear roadmap for maturity. With continued support from this committee, We will ensure the function is positioned to meet the expectations of our stakeholders and uphold the highest standards of governance. Thank you for your time and engagement. I welcome your guidance, feedback, or questions.
Thank you, Aaron. Any questions?
Yeah, this sounds really great, clear, concise. Now my worry or my concerns are the upcoming changes, and so what impacts do you all see that having on our audit process as far as the county changes and the divestment of funds and the pending employment, changes with our staffing? Because I feel like this is a great blueprint in us moving forward, but also want to reconcile it with reality. If we're talking about risk and things like that, what do you all project, or what changes have been projected in terms of how we're moving forward, specifically with this plan and staffing?
Yeah, so as far as the staffing is concerned, we are currently 3 members in our internal audit department. Yes, just 3. Yes, small but mighty. Yeah, and we are still in the process of getting our CAE on board. However, with 3 members that we currently have, we would we would try our best to execute our internal audit plan as discussed.
But yeah, it's a great question, and I think that but the answer is it's obviously in flux right now because we have Aram here today. We had Dr. Henderson here presenting before. From what I understand, Dr. Henderson is no longer tasked or staffed on internal audit at all. She had split her responsibilities previously from risk management and internal audit. They were combined, which isn't a best practice. And Dr. Yeah, she it's not a best practice. She recognized that. So I think that to everybody's credit, that's now been everything's more comfortable now that that's not the case. It's not a best practice to have the same person overseeing risk management and internal audit. So it's still a work in progress. And not only are there challenges related to our budget, but there are challenges related to staffing and even definition of the roles and job descriptions, because I know that we need to make sure that we have job descriptions for the people who are on our team and we understand what those roles are. And in my opinion, that's going to be the first place that we can start with that is with a clear budget memo that explains what the budget is for the internal audit department. And this was an item that we had asked for we were hoping to have presented at our meeting a month ago, but it wasn't provided by finance at that time. We still don't have one that's a clean and clear budget memo. I did receive something literally last night at 9:30 at night, which is 13 hours before this meeting. So that's not optimal, but it wasn't complete anyway. But I think that that's one of the things we need to do to have an effective function. We need to have a clear budget memo. It's something that's been asked for since June, so it's been over 4 months. So we're going to try to work that out. But I know that this is a priority for management to get that clear, so that way we can make sure that we have a function that really works and be able to execute on the things that are here that you presented today, Aram. And I really appreciate this presentation. And also, there's going to be a conversation about what we prioritize. And those are going to be the questions like, what do we want to prioritize? Where do we want to shine our flashlight? And then also how many batteries do we have? How much battery life do we have in our flashlight, right? Because that's our team. And I don't know if it's going to be solar powered. It's powered by money from the county, the state, the federal. It's powered by our budget. So that's the thing. So we're going to have to be smart about what we want to focus on. I have to say that we did have a discussion of some of the priorities before. I think that some of the things that you've listed in here we should absolutely focus on, but it's going to be on us to kind of come up with what those areas of focus are and where we want to look. And we've started that discussion. I don't want to have too much of it here today because frankly we need to have our internal audit charter completed so that way we know what the ground rules are for us. But I do think that areas like we listed, like insurance coverage of our properties is something that we want to take a look at, or at least I'd like to look at. The financial management reporting, what's our current state of that financial management reporting, and what are best practices and how are we aligned? And, you know, including the frequency of reconciliation. So how much confidence can we have in those management reports? Because that's our roadmap for navigating these budget issues. And then also the team that we have, an alignment of job descriptions with the actual skills and resumes of the people who are there. So there's some areas that we can look at. But I think it's kind of beyond the discussion that we want to have today without, in the absence of a management committee charter.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry, internal, excuse me, internal, sorry, yeah, internal audit charter. Our audit committee charter has just been approved by our group. Sorry, I'm getting a little confused with the different documents. So anyhow, any other questions, or Aaron, do you have anything you'd like to add? Thanks. Okay, thank you so much for your presentation. I appreciate it. All right, so let's move on to number 6, update on action items from the prior meeting. So again, just to remind people, we're keeping track of action items in this committee, so that way we figure out what we want to act on. And there were a couple that we had from last meeting. I just want to check in with those. Some of this ground we've covered, but if we can go through that. Aaron, are you prepared to go tick through those?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
So first item was separation of internal audit from risk management. That is in place. Internal audit now reports functionally to audit committee and administratively to executive leadership. The updated internal audit charter reflecting the structure is with council for review. We had COC underspend review. The engagement is approximately 60% complete. Fieldwork has concluded and testing will begin next week. And then we'll prepare the report, which will be shared with our process owners. CSMA IT audit, the review is approximately 90% complete. An initial report has been prepared and will be shared with process owners and IT leadership. We will hold the exit conference next week.
Okay, great. And then, so the other, some other follow-up items were the internal audit budget memo, but that's not complete. We know that's not complete, but we're hoping to get that from finance. I already talked about that. The internal audit charters and process, you mentioned that. The opportunity for IIA membership for our committee members, which I think would be great for us. But also, I recently learned that our staff doesn't actually have that paid for also. So I think that's something we can look into, especially after we get that budget memo. I think it would be great to be able to sponsor the staff to become members of the IIA, because it's a huge resource for that. And I don't think it's a pretty nominal cost in the scheme of things. And I wouldn't want to put that on our staff members to have to pay out of pocket for that membership in that professional organization. And then the last item is about public participation and providing input, but we'll talk about that on the next agenda item. That was the other thing I had. Okay, so there's still stuff that you need to.
Yes, that is still in process. We're looking at different ways of getting that public methods for public to provide input to the committee.
Okay, yeah, so that's item number 7, which we don't have to go into. I will say, though, that I've received email messages from people outside of from staff or from other people about ideas for things that we might consider auditing. And so even in the absence of a formal structure, I'm starting to receive input from people say, hey, you maybe want to shine a flashlight over here, maybe over here, which I think is great. Anyhow, let's go through to that's item number 7. Now, item number 8 is review of action items and the person responsible. So the action items I have there's a follow-up by Janine with the audit committee involvement in the selection of the single audit process from the 2003 when that was selected. So we want to see if the audit committee was involved, and you said you'd take a look at that. I appreciate that. And then the other is the internal audit charter, which is, Aram, you're going to be shepherding that through our council. And hopefully I can be involved in that if it's necessary, or our committee can be. And we really appreciate you getting that done. And we'd like to get that in place as soon as possible, because we can't do work without it. Any other action items I'm missing? Okay, Eileen, thank you so much for Appreciate you tracking this.
I will be updating the audit charter on the documents posted online. I introduced myself earlier. You only need to introduce yourself once per meeting. Good morning, I'm Eileen Bryson, Manager of Executive Support.
Thank you, Eileen. I appreciate that. And we're really glad to have that, audit committee charter approved by this committee, and then we'll have to have it go to full commission at the end of this month. So just want to thank everybody, unless there's any public participation. Do we have anybody? Really? Nobody? Okay. They're going to email me. Yeah, they know where to find me. All right, just want to say then, I guess our meeting is adjourned, and I just want to thank you very much for everybody who's here and appreciate what you do.